Are you gonna sit down? If you sit down, it's fine. Okay, I guess I will do this video with a cat on my lap, because I don't know what his deal is today. What's up, my dudes? So today's video is going to be a little bit different. Instead of reviewing one big trade of comics, I'm going to be reviewing 4 different singular issue comics, because this past week I was able to go to Colorado and got the chance to be at Mile High Comics, and so I was able to get these 4 issues of comics, and I'm very excited about it. So let's just get started. So the first comic I want to review is the issue 1 of Jessica Jones by Brian Michael Bendis and art by Michael Gaydos. So, first off, to talk about the art, the cover I absolutely love, because I just love the watercolor style they're going for, and you know, like the style isn't simple, but it's a fairly simple cover, you know, because it's on like a white background, but I feel like despite it just being a white background, like, it just really ties it in all together, so I really enjoyed the aesthetic of the issue 1 cover of Jessica Jones. The art inside the comic, you know, is a bit more like ordinary comic book art. It does have some more heavy black shading, you know, which I always enjoy, and thicker black lines, and it's a more realistic style, so you know, just your basic comic book looking style. So since this is the first issue, there wasn't a lot of major characters that were in it. So the only really character design I'm going to talk about is Jessica, which, not much to say since, you know, she has her leather jacket and scarf. She looks pretty much like Jessica Jones, the private investigator that we know. Personally, though, the one thing that did bug me was the fact that she had like a medium brown hair, which that sort of bugged me because I prefer her having a dark brown or like black hair. I think that's just because of the TV show influence, though, but that's just a personal preference, like that, but it doesn't affect the comic at all or whatever. To talk about the story was really good. I mean, Jessica felt like, you know, the good old Jessica that we know, you know, the one that doesn't like the angry Jessica Jones, I guess, you know. So she felt like herself, and all the other characters felt human, you know. This comic has a really good setup for like a first issue comic, because it's got a good setup for like the overall story that we're going to be seeing throughout the comic, and it does really leave you intrigued and like curious to find out more. So to give you like a quick summary of the comic, like, this is tiny obviously since the comic's tiny. Jessica just got released from prison, and she's trying to live her life despite all these other sort of super people interfering with it, talking about some sort of mysterious baby. So it does leave you intrigued, because you're like, what is happening? Why are all these people bothering Jessica? Why did she just get out of jail? You know, lots of questions that will hopefully be answered in the upcoming, or throughout the story. So yeah, it does leave you sort of very intrigued, and it does leave you on a good cliffhanger that makes you want to be like, oh my god, I need to see the next issue. Like, when I read that cliffhanger, I was like, oh shit. So yeah, I definitely did enjoy this, and I will be looking for more. The next comic that I got was Daredevil Road Warrior by Michael Wade, and the art by Peter Krause. So, to start with the art, I love this comic book cover so much. Like, so, firstly, let me break it down. I love the simplicity of the art style because I always love a good simple art style. I'm weird because like I either like the type there's two types of art styles that I love, and it's really simple or just over the top extreme crazy art styles. So there's like no in between, which is really weird. I just like the polar opposites. So I do like the sort of simplicity of this design. I love that he's got his like signature classic Daredevil outfit as opposed to a really complex armored one. Um, and then I also really love the background. Like I love the spirals in the sky, and then like the pink lined city, which is supposed to represent how he sees the world, you know, through his other senses. I also love the placement of the title of it and the relationship between the title and the character, because like the title isn't too forward um, where it's like washing this him out, but at the same time he's not too forward to where it's washing the title out. So I think it's a really good balanced relationship. Um, so to talk about the art inside the comic, it's a tiny bit more detailed. Like the characters have a bit more detailing. I don't know if that's a word. Than the comic, but it's still rather simple and a bit consistent to the simplicity of the cover. So character design, obviously we gotta talk about Matt Murdock. He looks like, you know, the ordinary Matt Murdock, comic book Matt Murdock with his fiery red ginger hair and red glasses. Um, Personally, I thought his hairstyle was a bit weird and it looked really flat. That's just a personal preference though. Uh, but his Daredevil costume I really loved because it was very simple and it's like the classic Daredevil costume that he had when he was first like a superhero back in whenever Daredevil became whenever he was first published, which I don't know the exact year, but you know, it's like his classic superhero style, which I really enjoy. So yeah, the suit was very simple and stylish. So to talk about the story, a quick summary of it is Matt Murdock is taking a trip to San Francisco after revealing that he was the Daredevil, and he's doing this trip for his job, among other things. And once he arrives at his destination, he finds a person who seems suspicious and seems like they're not as ordinary as they seem. So that's basically the summary. I really enjoyed the personality of the Daredevil in this comic because he's like a much more happier person than like a lot of other comics and stuff. Like in the TV show and some other comics, you know, he's like Mr. Edge McEdgelord, right? And he's like, I hate friends, I hate life, God isn't real. Like, he's a really sad person. But in this comic, you know, he's like, I love my friends. And he's like so happy. And it's so nice to see him so happy. And so, yeah, I just really liked the personality of this Matt Murdock than like a lot of other Matt Murdocks out there. The story was also pretty good. I mean, so I get the feeling that this comic series is more of going to be like a villain of the week type of comic series with like a bit of like an overall story going throughout the throughout the series. But it is good, you know. I did really enjoy reading it, and I definitely will enjoy reading others, especially since this is such a happy Matt Murdock. So yeah, I enjoyed that. So like in this series, he is a unmasked Daredevil, so like everyone knows he's Daredevil. They know Matt Murdock is Daredevil, which I think is a bit weird because it's like at that point, why does he even wear a suit? So, uh, so yeah, I think that's a bit weird, but it will be interesting to see how they take this part of him throughout this series that he has revealed that he is. Uh, the Daredevil, so that'll be a cool thing to also see throughout the series. The next comic I want to talk about is the DC Universe rebirth of Hellblazer by Simon Oliver and the art by Moritat. Wait, hold on. Yeah, Moritat. Sorry, I can't read my own handwriting. Of course, first off is art. Now this cover isn't one of my favorite covers. I mean, like, the art itself is good, you know, they went for a very realistic style of art, but I really enjoy, like, the blue, like, temple and, like, fire-looking stuff down there, but then, like, when you go up here to the top part of it, you know, it's sort of like, it feels like there's a lot of empty space, like as opposed to the Jessica Jones cover, which also has, like, a white background. It didn't feel like it was empty because, like, they had, like, black paint going off of her, sort of type of thing, but this just feels really empty, and, like, you know, they have the little birds, I guess, but it just doesn't feel like enough. And maybe that's because of the title. Like, I really like the text style of the Hellblazer, but I feel like it just doesn't match with the rest of the cover, so maybe if they had changed that a bit, it might have pulled it all together, but, so yeah, not too big of a fan of the cover. However, the art inside of it I really like, because it is one of a more simpler type of comic book art styles, with thick, bold lines to outline the characters, and, it's, what's the word, oh, yeah, it's got very, like, not saturated colors, you know, very cool, not saturated colors that I really liked. So, to talk about character design, now, this is the first Hellblazer comic I've actually ever read, because I've been wanting to get into Hellblazer and John Constantine, for a while now. Sorry, my throat is just awful today. But I've been wanting to get into John Constantine for a while now, and so this is the first comic I've read of him, so I don't really know enough, I guess, about the character to talk about character designs, because I haven't seen, I guess, enough of him to really get a grasp of the character, but from what I've seen in this comic, you know, he looks like a rugged guy who just doesn't care about his appearance type of thing, you know, who's tired of life. And then Swamp Thing looks exactly how you would picture something called Swamp Thing. But they both were good character designs. Like, nothing was off about them. They both looked really cool. So I didn't mind their character designs at all. So to talk about the story now, a quick summary of this comic is John is living his life when Swamp Thing comes and pays an unexpected visit to him and asks him for a favor. Meanwhile, you get two glimpses of, like, these two brothers who seem like immortal or something, and you don't know what's about them at all. So this is also a very good setup for, like, a first issue comic. You can tell that this will have a sort of overall story type of thing, and it definitely does leave you curious and intrigued and wanting more, or at least for me it did. You know, I was a bit confused though, but because, like, they mention a lot of things in this story that I didn't know about, but I think that's because, like, I don't know enough about this character's history to really understand all the, like, nuances and stuff. So I'm sure if you have a good background knowledge of John Constantine or Swamp Thing, then you'd be able to understand a bit more. But I do feel like this comic still won't be too confusing to read, even if you don't have background knowledge of John Constantine, because I'm sure since this is, like, the first issue of the rebirth, they'll probably explain a lot more throughout the issues, hopefully. So yeah, I think this story, even though there were a few things I was confused on. I still think it's a good first setup for a series, and it definitely left on a good cliffhanger, and definitely leaves you wanting to read more, or at least it did for me. So yeah, really enjoyed this one, and will be seeking out more. Hopefully the other ones have better covers. So yeah, the final comic I want to talk about is issue 1 of Flash Gordon by Ben Acker and Ben Blacker. And so, the cover, I love it so much because it's got that classic vintage sci-fi, comic book cover, like this type of comics that they'd have back in like the 1950s, or well, Flash Gordon came around in like the 1920s or something, or maybe even earlier, because like the TV show was in the 20s. But anyway, so yeah, it has that vintage feel to it, which I really love, because like 1950s sci-fi comic book styles is like my aesthetics, and so I really enjoy the overall aesthetic of this entire cover. And it really fits with, like, Flash Gordon, right? Oh, wait, I forgot. The dude who did the art was Lee Ferguson. Yes, Lee Ferguson, I mean, he did a good job. It looks like, normal comic book sort of art, and it looks like a more newer style of comic book, which is a bit of a shame because, from the cover, I got excited, and I thought, like, the entire book would be in that sort of vintage style, but the art was still good. I mean, it wasn't like I couldn't read it because of it or anything. The art was still good, so I'm so glad that they kept Flash's blonde hair and Dale's black hair, because like that's such an iconic part to their characters, So, everyone's character design in this book was pretty good. I mean, there wasn't anything new really. They just made them look a bit more, I guess, modern than like other iterations. But they kept like the same original features of the characters. Same with Dr. Zarkov and Ming. So I was really glad that they kept a lot of the original features. To talk about the story, so the summary of this is that Flash and his team go to a planet called Tropica, which is an acronym that's Tropica, to help out to steal a jewel of some sorts, to further the downfall of Ming. So the story's pretty basic. I also get the feeling that this story might have, that this series will have a sort of like villain of the week type thing. Except the villain will always be Ming, of course, or someone who's following Ming. But I do think they will have more of an overall story, so like, you probably could not just jump into the comic without reading previous issues. So, yeah, all the characters felt in character. I mean, Flash, he's got that charming, goofy, not so smart personality to him, and Dale has her more level-headedness to her. And then Ming is off. You don't see Ming a lot, but he seems as merciless as he should be. This is good for like a more casual read type of thing. But I did really enjoy it, and I will be looking for more because I just love Flash Gordon so much, and I'm so happy that they've made like a newer season of it. So I'm very excited to get into more of Flash Gordon of this series. So anyway, that was my comic book haul that I got from Mile High Comics. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and as always, if you have read these comics, tell me your opinions, whether you agree or disagree, or how you feel, whatever. And feel free to leave a feel free to suggest a comic you'd like to see me review in the future. So, thanks for watching, and bye!